All right, so earnings calls, right? Not
Yeah.
exactly everyone's idea of a good time, huh? But you're not here for just the numbers. You want to know what's really going on, where things are headed.
Exactly. And with a company like Abbott, I mean, they're everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Nutrition, diagnostics, devices, the works. So their earnings call, it's like a sneak peek at the future of healthcare, all these different pieces.
Totally. So that's what this deep dive is all about, Abbott's latest, and what it tells us about the road ahead. And to your point, they're huge EE. But we're not just skimming the surface here. We're going deep, deep, deep.
That's where the good stuff is, right?
Yeah.
Those little details that tell a much bigger story, not just about Abbott, but the whole industry.
Okay, so let's start with something everyone gets. Baby formula. At first glance, they're U.S. nutrition business. Amazing quarter, double-digit growth, pediatric, adult, you name it. Here's practically printing the money. But then, internationally, pediatric sales tanked. Same company, same basic product, totally different story. What's going on there?
It's a classic case of you can have all the market share in the world, but if you don't execute.
Yeah.
And Abbott, they admitted they messed up a bit internationally. Wrong teams in place, some marketing misfires, that kind of thing.
So it's not like babies suddenly stopped needing formula. It was more of an Abbott-specific fumble.
Exactly. And to their credit, they're already course-correcting, seeing improvements. But even the big guys aren't invincible, right? Even in a market that seems stable as, well, baby formula. Makes you think about operational agility, how companies adapt, even when they're on top.
Right. Like how many other giants are out there getting complacent? Okay, so babies, check. Let's talk about something that could impact Abbott even more. Global politics. Their diagnostics growth wasn't what some folks expected. Might seem like a bad sign, but it's more nuanced than that, right?
Way more. This is where understanding the global landscape is key. Remember China's VBP program, the volume-based procurement thing, basically how they strong-arm lower drug prices. Well, that's finally hitting Abbott's diagnostics business over there.
So not their tech failing or quality issues, just external forces at play.
Exactly. And to prove it, everywhere ELSE, their diagnostics did fantastic, double-digit growth internationally. So yeah, geopolitics, even in healthcare, it matters. Big time.
Makes you wonder, right? What other global trends are out there, regulations that could be lurking, ready to impact companies? Something to think about. All right, let's switch gears totally. Freestyle Libre, this continuous glucose monitor. It's like the talk of the town, right?
More than just a device, though. It's
Yeah.
like Abbott's building a whole ecosystem around it. Smart, long-term play.
Yeah, they had something like 21% growth in that segment last quarter. But you're saying it's bigger than just, here's a device, check your blood sugar. It's about changing how diabetes is managed, maybe even how people without it approach their health.
Absolutely. So for folks with diabetes, they've got partnerships, big insulin pump companies. So data from the Libre goes straight into those systems. Seamless. Yeah, no more like poking your finger all the time, right? Makes a huge difference.
Talk about like freedom, control over your health. It's huge, but they're not stopping at just diabetes.
Oh, not even close. They just launched Lingo here in the U.S., and that's for people without diabetes.
No, that's interesting. So even if my blood sugar's fine, this thing can be like, hey, here's how that pizza actually made you feel, kind of thing. Real-time feedback.
Precisely. Metabolic response, informed decisions, all that. And get this, the reorder rates for Lingo, sky high. People are loving the data, sticking with it.
It's like suddenly you can peek inside your own body, see how it all works. So Abbott's not just selling a product, they're creating a whole new market, right? Changing how we think about preventative health. That's playing the long game.
Exactly. They dominate one area, then bam, springboard to something totally new. And that long-term thinking, it's in other places too, like their whole approach to structural heart.
Oh yeah, that was impressive. It's not just about treating symptoms, it's like getting at the root cause of heart problems. Which, for those of us who aren't cardiologists, what does that actually look like?
Think less invasive procedures, devices that make a difference for years, decades even. It's about, not just adding years to life, but life to those years. Quality over quantity.
I'm seeing a theme here. Abbott, they played chess, not checkers, right? While everyone else is worried about next quarter, they're thinking 10 years out. Like with these structural heart moves or the huge R&D budget they've got, it's that multi-decade thinking their CEO talked about. What kind of message does that send? Not just to competitors, but like investors too.
Oh, it's huge. It says, we're not afraid to play the long game, even if it means maybe not the biggest profits today. They're building something that lasts. And for investors, that's gold.
It's like they're saying, we're not just riding the wave, we're the ones building the surfboard. But even with all of that, can't ignore the elephant in the room, or, well, the preemie in the room, I guess. Those NEC lawsuits, the infant formula ones, still hanging over things.
Yeah, and this is tough because it's high stakes for everyone, right? We're talking about babies, preemies especially. It's as sensitive as it gets. Might be good to define NEC, just so everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, good call. Break it down.
So NEC, necrotizing enterocolitis, it's this nasty intestinal problem, mostly in premature infants. Can be really serious, life-threatening even. And there have been lawsuits saying some ingredients in formula, they might be linked to it.
And Abbott's been pretty firm on this, right? Their products are safe, meet all the regulations, that whole thing.
Exactly. And adding to that, you had the FDA, CDC, A&D, NIH, all three of them put out a joint statement recently. Say there's any all-conclusive link between formula and NEC.
Wow, all three. That's gonna mean something, right? But does that change anything legally for Abbott, you think?
It's definitely a curveball, right? I mean, that statement carries weight, but it doesn't just erase the lawsuits that are already out there or prevent new ones. It's complicated, to say the least.
So, wait and see how it all plays out in court. Sounds like the story's far from over. But let's switch gears a bit to something Abbott's killing it in. Electrophysiology. Their growth there is amazing, especially with this pulsed field ablation, PFA, right? That's cutting edge stuff. Oh yeah, PFA. We've talked about this before. It's like the surgical equivalent of a smart bomb, zapping those faulty electrical pathways in the heart. Super precise, really cool stuff.
It really is. And Abbott, they've been strategic, building this up both with their own stuff and partnerships. In fact, they just finished enrolling patients for that U.S. trial, their pulsed field ablation catheter, ahead of schedule 2.
And early completion, that's usually a good sign, right? Like things are moving fast, going well.
Exactly. Shows how much excitement there is around PFA, how it could really change how we treat atrial fibrillation, game changer potential.
So all in on the future, but they're not ditching their old stuff either, right? The radiofrequency ablation, the more traditional treatments.
Smart move. They're hedging their bets, offering a bit of everything. And that open mapping system they have works with both PFA and D, the older RF ablation. That's a big advantage for them.
It's like, hey, we're leading the charge into the future, but we got you covered right now, too. Love it. Honestly, feels like Abbott's firing on all cylinders, you know? Challenges, sure, but their strategy is solid.
Totally agree. They're balancing innovation with, like, actually getting stuff done, which is rare. And the way they invest in these long-term areas, whether it's heart treatments, diabetes tech, it's all really promising.
And promising for the future of healthcare overall, right? Like, it's companies this big with the resources they have and that forward-thinking mindset, they're the ones who can tackle the big stuff.
No doubt.
Yeah.
That's why we got to understand not just what they're doing, but the WHY behind it. That's where the real insights are.
Preach. But before we get too carried away with our little Abbott fan club meeting here, we did promise you actionable insights, not just like an Abbott love fest, right? Yeah. So let's bring this back to you. This whole deep dive, it's about, okay, Abbott's doing their thing, but what's it mean for healthcare overall, especially if you're thinking about investing and all that?
And that's the key question, right? Not one-size-fits-all answers, but giving you the tools to figure it out yourself.
Exactly. So for anyone listening who's thinking, okay, Abbott, interesting, but should I throw my money at them? What are the big questions they got to be asking?
If it were me looking at Abbott, investor hat on, I'd want to know, how long can they keep this growth up? Is it all riding on one product, one market, or have they got their eggs in enough baskets? And those legal challenges we talked about, how well are they really handling that risk?
Great points. They're playing long games, sure, but is the foundation strong, you know?
Yeah.
Now, for those of you who are all about the future, the what's next, blow my mind stuff, what should they be paying attention to with Abbott?
Watch that diabetes ecosystem closely. Will lingo, those insulin pump deals, actually move the needle on how we prevent these diseases? That's huge. And on the heart side, that tricuspid valve treatment they're working on could be a total game changer if it pans out the way they hope.
Exciting stuff. It's like a good reminder, the future of healthcare, we're not just along for the ride. Smart investments, innovation, and yeah, even these tough conversations about the risks, the what-ifs. We shape that future.
100%. And on that note, I think we did a pretty good job dissecting Abbott this time around, right?
We went deep. But before we call it a day, gotta leave you with something to chew on. If a company like Abbott, this massive, established giant, is making these kinds of moves, what does that tell you about how fast healthcare is changing, period? And what kind of opportunities, challenges does that create for you? Personally, professionally, all of it. Think about it. That's all from us for this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and we'll catch you next time.